Good morning. So join me as we get right into it. If you have the Shaar Habitachon, please open it up. We're still on chapter 4. And I know it's been taking us a very long time because this chapter has a lot to cover. And today's class will be done in our shul. Excited because it is one of my favorite places. And we'll say good morning to Francesca, we'll say good morning to Shirley, to Rosalie. Good morning, everybody. All comfy? All feeling good? Give me a thumbs up how you feeling this morning. Yeah? How's everyone's moods? Spring is in the air. Come on. COVID's out the door. Almost. Okay. Let me see everyone's moods this morning so I'll know what kind of atmosphere we are. Hello, Corrine. How are you feeling this morning? Show me an emoji what your mood is today. Okay. Hello, Tal. Good morning. You feeling good? Okay. Happy to. Hi, Chevy. Good morning. Okay, we're going to start off. Hello. Good morning, Rosalie. Good morning, Sharon. Okay, I see a lot of good feelings today. Everyone's feeling good. Becky, how's Israel doing this morning? Always on our hearts and minds. How's everyone's mood? How's the safety? We're davening for you all the time. Good morning, Helga. Boker Tov. It's good to see everyone getting up here today. Wonderful. Okay, good morning, Francis. Welcome. Hello, good morning. Okay, everyone grab your tzedakah box and your coin. Good morning, Arlene. We get to see you every night and every day. That's unbelievable. It was wonderful seeing you last night on our women's course on Zoom. Okay, we're going to open up to chapter 20. And please put down in the comments if there's anyone that you want us to pray for. We have a list here, but we're always ready to add on more people. Yaakov Moshe Ben Necha. I want to tell you a lot of these people, I've already had to take off their names because they're doing better. There's one man here that we davened was actually a miracle. He was literally not alive. And today he's back in shul and walking and miraculous. I really believe our prayers to him has helped him recover. The doctors are astounded. Yaakov Moshe Ben Necha, Yehudis Bas Sari, Yitzchak Moshe Ben Rachel Rezet, Tzipora Hinda Bas Rachel Miriam, Sarah Bas Chana, Menucha Bas Emmanuel, Sarah Bas Rivka, Yisrael Ben Esther Golda, Chamadina Bas Esther Hadassah, Henya Tzipora Bas Chayechevet, Tuvi Moshe Ben Perel, Liram Bracha Bas Shein Delea still needs a bigger refuah shalema. Chaim Ben Rachel, okay, thank you, Rosalie. Rivka Bas Chafitza, Leah Bas Chafitza, Dalia Bas Yehudis, Tova Bas Tema Basya, Moshe Ben Miriam, Leah Bas Etel, Gitla Bas Sima, Leah Bas Etel, Nomi Sarah Bas Sephora, Sarah Bas Panina, Do Ben Tova, Malka Bas Reza Leah, Yeshua Ben Leah, and Yitzchak Mechel Ben Bracha. So we should hear B'sura Tovot. And for those of you who are adding names, if you have good news to share, please let us know that Tehillim is working. Okay, chapter 20. Please join in with me. Lamanatseach Mizmar LeDavid, Yancha Dinar B'Yom Tzara, Yisagef Hashem Elahei Yaakov, Yishlach Ezracha Mikodesh, Umetzion Yisadeka, Yiskar Kol Mechasecha V'Lascha Yidash Nesela, Yitin Lecha Chalavecha V'Chol Atzascha Yimale, Nerana B'Shuasecha V'Shem Eloheinu Nidgol, Yimalei Adonai Kol Mashalasecha. Ati adati ki yashia dena mishicho yani mishmei kotra begruas yeshemino. Ela verecha ve'ela vasusim v'nachnu mishim Adonai Eloheinu naskir. Hema karav v'nafal v'nachnu kamna v'sadad Adonai Yashia melcheni nidlam krina. I just want to show you something. You know, every Shabbos when we used to come to shul, so at the end of davening, Zalmi used to stand right here at the stender, and he used to, his cute little chubby body used to stand up there. And he used to say this chapter to him. And he used to say, and he said it that people in the community literally thought he knew it by heart, but he was so smart. He knew the first words and the last word of every pasuk, and he knew the tune. So because he had that correct tune and some of the words and a little bit of intonation, everyone thought this kid knew the whole chapter 20 by heart, and they were blown away. because not many people know this chapter by heart. But by now you should know it. Good morning, Naomi. Good morning, Pamela. Good morning, Lauren. Good morning. Okay. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, so we're going to get right into it. We are in chapter 4, page 178. So for those of you that have Shaar Habitachon, feel free to open it up. Hi, good morning, Sancha. Good to see you. Okay, last week we spoke about commandments that affect other people and how you should relate to other people. So like, giving tzedakah, giving meiser, teaching Torah wisdom, teaching children how to behave like a mensch, keeping a secret, speaking good about a fellow person, behaving kindly, honoring your parents. Those are mitzvahs that we do to someone else. And what is the proper way to have bitachon in these aforementioned matters, right? That we should do these mitzvahs without ever feeling like, well, I'm doing this mitzvah, how wonderful I am, right? Or I just baked challah and I'm giving it to all these people. Wow, now they all have to thank me. I'm just thinking about, all of us are human, right? And we all struggle with this. We all walk out doing a mitzvah thinking really good. I just gave $10,000 to the show for, now they all owe me. And now the rabbi has to give me all this respect, right? So, and all of us have that. We all do kindness. And Shaar Habitachon says, when you do the kindness, just do it for the mitzvah. Not because you're going to get anything back, not because you're going to get any respect, accolades. We spoke about that it's good for people to get honored in public because it encourages others to follow suit. But the person that's honored is not doing it so he can become this arrogant person in the community who everyone owes me, and I have to sit at the front of the show because everyone owes me because what I did for the show, right? Hey, good morning, Leah. Mazel tov to you. So, Leah had a baby girl recently. Just Arlene said, feel good? Yeah. Oh, so now, Arlene, this is the segue into today. Because today, we're going to talk about what is the reward in this world and what is the reward in Olam Haba when we do a mitzvah. Does anybody have any ideas if we are privy to that? Or do you know any reward you get for doing a mitzvah? Feel free to put it into the comments. I'll give it a few minutes because it's interesting, what is our reward for doing a mitzvah? Do we do mitzvahs for rewards? Is the reward physical, monetary? What is the reward? And does the Torah tell us? So our Torah is a very open book. And there's nothing hidden. Hashem tells us he wants us to connect. And I just heard actually this morning, my nephew, he has like a little blog every morning. And this morning he said something so beautiful. Shout out to my nephew, Levi Labor. He said something very special. He said, why do we do a mitzvah? Do we do a mitzvah to get the reward? Or good morning, Karine. Good morning, Linda. So a Jew has to understand that when we do a mitzvah, okay, and actually this is something that the Rebbe Rashab said, when we do a mitzvah, we give God nachat ruach, which means we give God good feelings, pleasure, okay? Because Hashem created us. And as his creations, we want to make Hashem feel that he made a good choice with bringing us into the world. And so every time we do a mitzvah, we should realize that we are making Hashem have this connection with us. And we feel fulfilled that we show Hashem, look, you created me and look what I'm doing with myself. Listen, this is so practical between parents and children. No matter how old you are, you all know, Mandy, Linda, Karine, you all know, we all want to give our parents nachas. I don't know about you, but I am 58 years old. And I call my parents every day, almost. Linda, we're going to talk about that, okay? So when I do a mitzvah or when I do something and my father goes, oh, Goldie, I just heard that you did this and this and this. As a child, it makes me feel good that my father has nachas. I'm not 10 years old. I'm not 4 years old. But it's the human condition that we want to make our parent feel proud and get pride of our actions. How much more so with our relationship to God? We know that Hashem is proud of us when we do a mitzvah. And that knowledge gives you joy in your life. Even if you don't get a reward, just the fact that you know that you gave Hashem joy, just because you give Hashem joy, that is enough. Now, Becky adds like this. Some mitzvahs we get to eat the fruits of them here and some in Olam Haba. Exactly. And that is what Shaar Habitachon is teaching us today. He's saying to us today that we don't know what the rewards are. If you open up the Siddur, the morning blessings, and I read it to you a couple of weeks ago, but this is on the line of what Becky is alluding to. These are the precepts in which no fixed measure is prescribed. Leaving the crops of the edge of the field for the poor, gift of the first fruits, the pilgrimage offerings brought when they came to the temple, the fruits of study the Torah. These are the precepts, the fruits of which man enjoys in this world, while the principle remains in the world to come. Honoring your father and mother, performing good deeds of kindness, early attendance to shul, house of study, hospitality to strangers, visiting the sick, dowering the bride, escorting the dead, concentration, which is kavanah in prayer, bringing peace between man and his fellow man, and between husband and wife, and the study of Torah is equivalent to them all. So we see here a few mitzvahs of which we are told we will get reward in Olam Haba. However, surprise, in today's Shaar on Shaar Habitachon, he tells us, and this is Rabbeinu Bachaya, he tells us that the reward that is given to a person might receive reward in this world, might receive the world and world to come, but it doesn't explain which reward the person receives for which mitzvah. Which means you and I might think that the biggies, like honoring your parents, fasting on Yom Kippur, keeping kosher, and let's say escorting the dead, that might be the biggie, right? Keeping kosher, that's one of the laws of Chukim, the statutory laws. Wow. We're not wearing shatnez. Wow, those are biggies. But he says here, we do not know. He did not specify which reward we will receive for each mitzvah. Now, when it comes to sins, he does extrapolate Hashem. What are the specifics for which transgression, what is the punishment? And the Torah actually lays it out. In the days when there was a bet din, there was stoning and burning, and I don't want to say that, but there were real punishments that were given out in those days. There was kares, and what people have to pay for certain sins. If they stole something, they have to pay 4 times or 5 times. And so the Torah does tell us what we have to pay and what the punishments are. But when it comes to mitzvahs, you and I will never know which mitzvah gives us a greater reward, either in this world or in Olam Haba, or the world to come. So what to do? So if you open up Pirkei Avot, which, by the way, is the ethics of our fathers, and we read this between Pesach and Shavuos, and Chabad has a custom to learn this throughout the summer. In chapter Beis, chapter 2, in Mishnah Aleph, he says, "Veheve zahar b'mitzvah kala k'bachamura, she'ein ato yodea matan scharen shel mitzvah." Aha. Veheve mechashev hefsed mitzvah keneged schara or schara vere keneged hefseda. Ooh. In English, what does it say? Be careful in the performance of a seemingly minor mitzvah, for you do not know the reward given for the mitzvah. Consider the loss incurred in the performance of a mitzvah against the reward earned by its observance, and the gain from a sin against the loss that will follow. In other words, he's saying, we do not know. We do know that the Torah talks a lot, elaborates. For example, we told the 10 Commandments. It says, if you honor your father, you're going to get long life. Okay? Becky here says, when you escort the dead, it's the only kindness you can do for another human being. They can never, ever return to you. It's a huge mitzvah. But do you get a reward from God? We don't know what the rewards are. And why do you think, and I'm leaving it out to you now, put in the comments, why do you think God created the world where he gave us 613 commandments and doesn't tell us the reward for each one? Okay, I'm going to give you a few seconds to put that down in the comments. And then I will read to you what Rabbeinu Bachaya tells us. And I think for those of us who do mitzvahs all the time, throughout the day, we're chapping mitzvahs, catching opportunities. You get a phone call that someone is in need, you run, you bring food. You hear that someone's in the hospital, you give a call. You hear that someone is collecting scarves for the homeless. You run to the dollar store, pick them up, drop them off the shelf. There are people that are always running to do mitzvahs. And you don't know which mitzvah gets you a bigger reward. So many people will say, I don't do a mitzvah for the reward. I don't do a mitzvah for the reward. Corinne says all mitzvahs are special. Good. In other words, you have parents who are getting old. You call them on a regular basis. You fly into wherever they live and you visit them. Do you do this so that you can get a reward? Do we honor our parents for a reward? Do we do it so we can get a bigger portion in their will? Is that why we do mitzvahs? Becky says, all mitzvahs are special, so we strive to do them all equally. Right, that's Corinne and Becky. So you're all onto it. And I want to read to you what Rabbeinu Bachaya says in this chapter. First of all, one thing we have to know, doing a mitzvah, we do because we connect to God. Savta v'chibur. Becky, what is the word mitzvah, the root of the word mitzvah? Sav, savta, to connect. The reason we do it is because we want to connect to God. That's the reward. I was walking off the show with a young woman in the community. Her son did a massive, massive mitzvah this week. At 11 years old, he had a Brit Milah. I want to know with a show of hands, how many of you have had the merit to participate in a Brit Milah, in a circumcision, of someone that was older than 8 days old? This was my second. First one was her oldest son who did it at 14. And now 5 years later, her 11-year-old son said he wants to have a Brit Milah. How many of you have had the merit? It was the most incredible opportunity. We invited a small amount of people. We didn't want it overwhelming. There were about 30 people here in Shul, right here in our beautiful Shul. The merit to have this 11-year-old boy have a Brit Milah. It is incredible. And when we were walking home, she said to me, I feel like sometimes when I do mitzvahs, then I'm connecting myself stronger. And sometimes when I don't, I feel like we gave an analogy many, many weeks ago when we were learning Tanya, that every time you do a mitzvah, it's like a thread. And it's a thread from here to Hashem. And every mitzvah we do makes threads get thicker and thicker and thicker until it's this thick, huge rope that connects us to our Creator. And she said to me, I don't live close to the community now. And I feel like I'm sort of dissolving my threads. And this is a woman who raised her children on such a level that her 11-year-old son wants to have a brit milah. Can you imagine what kind of woman she is? I said to her, are you funny? I said, you have the strongest connection to Hashem. Despite all odds, all circumstances that are going opposite against your will to create a connection to God, you are doing it. And she does so much. And we have to learn from women like this. Against all odds, mitzvahs that come hard to us, I feel, are those mitzvahs that make a stronger connection. Rabbeinu Bachaya says something very interesting. He says the good deed itself will be ruined and he will lose his reward. What does that mean? Because if the only intention is about getting a reward, then the whole kavana is wrong. We have to do it, like Rosalie says, to bring Mashiach. We have to do it to make connection to Hashem. We don't do mitzvahs to get reward. We don't do mitzvahs to get honors. And we don't know the value. And this is what he's teaching us in this chapter. He doesn't know, we don't know the purpose of each little mitzvah. We know that the bond between man and God is multifaceted, and that every mitzvah we do tightens that bond, gives us that connection that cannot be severed. Because the ultimate reward is that the drawing of is that of drawing God down and revealing his essence within this world. When we make a dira b'tachtonim, you remember we learned that in Tanya. When we make a dira b'tachtonim, and we make God a dwelling place in our home, that's the greatest reward. Bringing Hashem into your home. How big of a smile should that give you right now? Knowing that every time you do a little mitzvah, you are making God comfortable, and he wants to stay. I want to share with you a powerful story that happened with the shlucha. Her name is Dini Freundlich. She's a shlucha in China. And the story she shared with us at the Kinus a few years ago. Her and her husband do a lot of outreach to tourists. They get a lot of tourists to their community, businessmen, Israelis, Jews from all over the world. And she usually wakes up early Friday, bakes a ton of challah, and has it ready for her Shabbat meal that she hosts for many, many, many people. One Friday, she had just finished baking her last batch. She was exhausted. She gets a call from her husband. He says, Dini, just got a call from a gentleman from out of town. He's here for Shabbat, but unfortunately he can't join us at our home and at our Chabad house. So he asked if we have extra challah for him and his guests. They're spending Shabbos at the Red Wall. And Dini had just baked enough for her guests for this week. She didn't have that much extra. And she says to her husband, oh no, now I have to start baking again. Now, how many of you bake challah? Okay, give us a feeling of how many women here bake challah. You know, it's a big job, right? It's a few hours. It's the mixing of all the ingredients and letting the yeast rise, and then punching it down, and then letting it rise again and again every half hour, again and again and again. Hi, Ingrid. So it's baking challah could take a good 2.5, 3 hours, and then you stick it in the oven, and you have to take it out, and you have to make sure it doesn't get too hard on the outside, so people put on top on the racks. It's hours. And she had just finished baking challah. And now she has to start again. So when the challah is done, her husband comes home to put them into a bag and to drop them off at this businessman who's at the red wall. He walks in and she says to her husband, "You should just know what these challahs are worth." Just like as a little joke. And he thanked her for her hard work, and he thanked her profusely, and he left. About an hour later, he comes home and he says, "So tell me, how much do you think your challahs are worth?" So she says, "Well, China to get kosher challah, probably a lot of money, at least probably $10, $15 a challah." He says, "What about a new Torah? Your challahs just got us a new Torah." And he shares the story. He says, when he walked in with these fresh hot challahs, this businessman was blown away by the chesed, by the kindness, by the hard work of this shlucha. And he was so touched because unfortunately they were having some kind of convention at a hotel near the Red Wall, and him and his employees were all going to be there. And because it's Shomer Shabbat, he wanted to keep Shabbos. But he was so inspired and impressed by the devotion of this shlucha that she had gone out of her way to bake she didn't pull something out of the freezer. She baked him hot challahs, an entire, recipe, which is usually about 6, 7 challahs, right? And he turns to this shliach, Rabbi Freundlich, and he goes, "Wow, tell me, what do you need? I want to reward you." And the shliach said, "Well, we just came to town, and we have a Chabad, but we don't have our own Torah." And he goes, "I am giving you a Torah." So my friends, we don't know the rewards of our mitzvahs. She was able to see the reward of baking challah. She got a Torah. How many of us will see that? How many of us bake challahs for so many friends? We don't know. But we do know one thing. Actually, we know a few things. We're making a connection between us and Hashem, so our strings and our threads are getting thicker. We know that we're making Hashem a dwelling place in our world, because when we do a mitzvah in this olam hazeh, in a physical reality, we are bringing godliness into our reality. We also know we're giving Hashem nachas ruach. We're giving Hashem pleasure. What the reward is, who knows? Who cares? I don't ever do a mitzvah because I'm waiting for olam haba. In fact, I never ever heard the Rebbe ever talk like that. You do the mitzvah, you get a glorious olam haba. You study Torah, you're going to get a front seat in olam haba. Who knows? Who cares? First of all, I don't want olam haba. I want Mashiach to come any minute. I'm going to Israel, to the Beit HaMikdash. I don't need olam haba. I know, like Becky said, I'm doing mitzvahs to bring Mashiach. A community reward, a reward for all the Jewish nation, for all of the people of the world. Everyone will benefit from Mashiach. Can you imagine how much Ukraine and Russia will benefit when Mashiach comes? No more deaths, no more execution, no more refugees, homeless, orphans, death, hunger. Imagine when Mashiach comes, and our mitzvahs will bring that. I want to share with you another story. It's the little things that count, and I think really that's, I would say, today's topic. It's the little mitzvahs that count. The Rebbe, you can imagine, gets lots of beautiful, beautiful shalach manas. The wealthiest people in the world would bring the Rebbe shalach manot, big ones, fancy ones. But there was one young bacher, one young Talmudic student, who came with a little bag with 2 items, and he knocked on the door, and he left it there for the Rebbe and the Rebbitzin. And the Rebbitzin came into her dining room and looked at the table full of shalach manas, which by the Rebbitzin used to donate to Mechon Chana afterwards and to the yeshiva. And the Rebbitzin opens this bag and she sees, I think one item was a banana. She looks at this and she goes, "Oh, this shalach manot, the Rebbe will love." This shalach manot the Rebbe will love. Interesting. Not the big fancy schmancy chocolates that come from all the greatest chocolatiers in Paris. But this little shalach manos from this young man who probably doesn't have much money, a few pocket change, and he went and bought 2 items and shared it with the Rebbe. It's the little things that count. You know, we talk about saying hello to people first, right? Be the first one to say hello. You're in a store, you're walking down the street, you see someone, and you're like, I'm not in the mood of a long conversation now, or like, I'm not really friends, I don't really know them, right? Why would I bother? And so Torah tells us, be the first one to say hello. And it's actually Pirkei Avos. Be the one. It's a little mitzvah. But do you know that sometimes the smallest mitzvahs have the greatest ramifications? So this story actually happened in South Africa. How many of you from South Africa are watching right now? There was this man, a rabbi, who worked in a Schlachthaus. That's a slaughterhouse. And every day there was a guard at the door. And this guard was there in the morning, and this guard was there in the afternoon. And this rabbi, this shochet, every morning he walked in, he said hello, and on his way out, he always said goodbye. And if he didn't find the guard, he would go look for him and say goodbye. Let's say, Johnny, have a wonderful evening. One day, it's time to close. The owner of this slaughterhouse says to the guard, okay, time to go home, Johnny. Now lock up. And Johnny goes, no. Mr. So-and-so, he's still there. No, he's not there. All the shochtim, all the slaughters, they left already. Well, look at the talk. It's 6 o'clock. He goes, no, he did not leave. He goes, what do you mean? Everyone left. I checked all the rooms. Everyone is gone. And Johnny goes, no, because Rabbi so-and-so never leaves before he says goodbye to me. For months and months and months, he never leaves until he finds me and says goodbye. And he did not say goodbye to me. I know he's here somewhere. So employer rolls his eyes. He goes, okay, let's go give another check. So the 2 of them go in to all the different rooms, all the different areas, and the slaughter area and the meat area. And then they say, let's check the freezers. They open up the freezer, and there on the floor is lying Rabbi so-and-so. They grab him. They do some resuscitation. They call the ambulance, and they got him back to life. He had nearly frozen to death. When he was revived, there was Johnny looking at the rabbi in his eyes. And the rabbi said, how did you know I was here? And Johnny goes, because Rabbi, you never left without saying goodbye and good evening and thank you. And because of that little mitzvah that was done, Johnny realized that the rabbi was stuck somewhere in the slaughterhouse. You know, my friends, the rabbi said goodnight to this guard every night. We see guards all the time. Do we acknowledge them? Do we treat them with the dignity? Oh, he's just a guard, whatever, he's paid for that. Or do we make an effort to show kindness, the little mitzvah that we're doing? It saved this rabbi in South Africa. It saved his life. And this story is written all over. You can Google it. It's there. The power of a little mitzvah. Now, in this situation, we see the reward, right? His life was saved. Sometimes we do a mitzvah, and we never get to see the reward. So just want to end off with what Rabbeinu Bachai is telling us. What is important here to know is not the accomplishment of the mitzvah, but the connection to the infinite will of God And every time you do a little mitzvah, every time you do a little kindness, you know you're not doing it to get accolades, to get thank yous, to get rewards, to get acknowledged, to get plaques, to get in the newspaper, to be acknowledged by the shul. If the shul chooses to do that, great. But that is not why we do a mitzvah. We don't share tzedakah so that the poor person can be indebted to us forever. That is not why we get tzedakah. If we get a reward, great. If Hashem gives us what we, beautiful. But that's not why we do it. So go out there and work on our little mitzvahs. Have a beautiful, beautiful week.